Okay, let's start with a question. How many of us went to business school when we started up in business?
I expect there won't be a particularly large show of hands.
No, and that's because most of us decided to go into business just doing something that we love, or maybe something that we're really good at doing.
It's usually a little way down the line that we start to reflect on not actually gaining a grounding in the useful things like sales, marketing, finance and operations.
Yeah, and that's when it all starts to feel, well, a bit difficult.
I'm Nikki. I've been running businesses since 2004, and I'm the founder of the Growth Community, which is a place where businesses come to network and support each other's business success.
And I'm James, and I started my business back in 2020, helping businesses, brands and organisations to unlock the power of podcasting, basically using audio as a way to market and grow their business.
Well, in our line of work, we both meet a lot of businesses and we're constantly learning new things from being around them. Every day literally is a business school day.
So we thought, why not grab some of this good stuff and turn it into a podcast? So please take your seats. Class is about to start. Hello class, and welcome back. We have a very special guest joining us. Please introduce yourself.
Hi there, my name is Zoe Taylor. I am a chartered financial advisor working out of Yorkshire.
So we are talking about financial planning, a nice, easy, small subject that I'm sure we can cover in a couple of minutes flat because, there's nothing complicated about it at all. Let's just kind of prefix this by saying that what we're talking about today is kind of geared towards someone who is relatively new into business, or perhaps it's something that is on the horizon for them. But this might be stuff that's interesting or might be useful for anyone wherever they are on their kind of business journey, because it's a good chance to double check that you've got the right things in place and that you're doing things right. So I think that's a good kind of point just to kind of set the scene in terms of, I want to start with some quite basic questions because I've had my own business now for just over 3 years, and I've probably learned the hard way about some of the things that we're going to touch on. So I think it's for someone who was in my position 3 years ago that's just kind of starting out. Just give us a little bit of an overview to start with, Zoe, if you would do, about what do we mean by financial planning? What do you do? How can you help people?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good question, actually, because financial advisors and accountants, often the terms get used quite interchangeably, but really we have very distinct and different roles. So accountants are brilliant. There's some great ones in the careers community in particular. Their primary role is to ensure that businesses are compliant and doing the tax returns and are structured well and all that kind of thing. My job is very much wealth management. So we are here to ensure that business owners are well paid, that they're well protected, and that they have their own sustainable plan, both for business growth and for their own comfortable retirement for their families. Because quite often these two things, people's businesses and themselves, are, intrinsically linked. They are one and the same thing. So both halves of that kind of situation needs to work. So that's what I do.
So there are people that think, it's all right, I'll just wing it. I'll just do it. I just want to do something that I love doing, or, I'll worry about that somewhere further down the line. Why does it matter?
Yeah, it's true. And we do hear kind of flippantly people saying things like, oh, my business will be my pension and I will just be fine forever. And it really doesn't work like that. And if the last few years, you'll have seen this yourself through COVID, like we see turbulent challenges, and it would be incredibly naive and short-sighted of us all just to think, we'll all just live happily ever after, we'll just retire, and everything will be fine. It just genuinely doesn't work like that. It requires planning and foresight and, a strategy just as much as your business does and your kids do. They have to sit exams and they have to prepare for them. It's all the same. Like, there are inevitable life events that will happen, and winging it when it comes to business, particularly when things get serious and you employ people and they depend on you to pay their mortgages, etc. Winging it's really not an option. So having some strategies and some outside help to make these concepts a reality is really, really important.
What do you think? I mean, people quite often say, one of the stalwarts of a networking room is you will always see a financial planner. It's that, there's a lot around, and a lot of people quite often seem, they think, oh, I don't need a planner or a wealth management person because I haven't got any money. I'm not really earning any money yet, so I don't need that. What is that a naivety? What is it? Is the case? Do we need to have money in order to be able to start this process?
Do you know, it's such a fair question, especially like the stigmas of wealth management and this kind of stereotype of some city boy in a pink shirt, these millions and all of that, there is this whole sort of stigma. And actually, I would very much argue that the opposite is probably true. Like the people in new businesses who need to be resilient and need more protection, they're at more risk of financial harm. They're at more risk of running out of money through not being prepared. Like, these are the people who actually really need the help early on. This is where we add so much value. It's much easier to make money when you've already got tons of money. It's much harder to make and grow and protect money when you're starting out like probably us three did with 20 quid and an old banger, we've all been there. So yeah, it's certainly much harder, but there is much more need. So you really would be wise not to shy away from these things, thinking, oh, maybe I'm not really worthy of that, because actually you get the right people around you and your business and your personal life will thrive because you are surrounded by help and, good thoughts and good advice.
Okay. Thinking, we said going back to this person, I almost want to give them a name. I want to call him Steve, who's he's just starting out. Good old Steve. He's had a job for a while. He's kind of, he's setting up to start with, going to be a one-man band, but he might have plans to, grow his business or whatever. It doesn't really matter. But, so Steve, very beginning of his business journey, what things does Steve need to think about from a financial point of view?
Well, let's talk about Steve. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So when people leave this kind of slightly sheltered, kind of protected world of employment that is lovely in a lot of ways, like you see both sides with this. You have people who, have come from a guaranteed income.
Yeah.
They have, have had sick pay, holiday pay. They've had a dedicated marketing support team. They've had all of these kind of things that we take for granted. Don't get me wrong, they also have the corporate nonsense, the calling a meeting to arrange when the next meeting is, and, all that other kind of inflexible working. Like, there was loads of reasons why I love entrepreneurs and they're great to work with. But when you jump from that frying pan into the fire, you think you're getting a certain thing, and in reality you get this crazy business, this like overwhelming panic of where on earth am I going to get some funds from? How am I going to pay my mortgage? Like, this is a big leap into the unknown for our mystery Steve. So where we kind of need to set people off right is like the basics of resilience. Like, we need to have things in place. So we make sure he has good cash flow. We make sure that he has some sort of protection for when and if things go wrong. When you leave that employed role, you leave behind, your death in service schemes, your life cover, your sick pay, like all of that just goes completely out the window. And whilst I appreciate at the beginning it's hard, like everything's a priority, like marketing and everything's a priority. However, without your like protected earnings or without decent cash flow, your business can't physically do anything. So there's also mentions, again, it's a fine line. There's so many priorities, but when you leave employment and go out on your own, all of this stuff needs to be factored in to really make sure that you're feeling the benefit of being self-employed, the freedom, the flexibility, the time with your family. All of that also needs to afford your holidays and your pension funds. Otherwise, it's not worth the potential uncapped earning potential. You've got to tread that fine line between security and safety and making sure you've provided for yourself in the same way that your company would have. So It's tricky.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this is something that most businesses just don't even contemplate. It just doesn't even feature on the plan. That it's get started with the business, start marketing, start selling. All the stuff that goes with that, and naturally, this side of things is just almost forgotten about because they were so used to having it before they didn't even think that they needed it.
People are playing catch up, aren't they? Basically,
Yeah.
the get the business up and running, because that is such a challenge in itself. This stuff does get a little bit buried. What about you? You mentioned there about basically income protection. Why is that important? And you've kind of touched on it, but I think it's right to ask that as a separate question. And there's a heck of a lot of options out there. So what should people be looking for when they're going out and getting a policy? Because it's very easy just to get some quotes and just you go for the cheapest because you think, great, I can afford that. But it might not necessarily be right for people. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah. So income protection is very much designed to replace a good percentage, normally 70% of your usual earnings. So it's vitally important. Like, we are talking about avoiding financial hardship. So we're talking about being able to continue paying your bills, your mortgage, whatever goes on behind the scenes to support your household, basically, where you otherwise couldn't. So this is, serious stuff, and there's a massive lack of cover. But the statistics are fascinating. Like, when you look at what the typical high claims are, they're perhaps not what you think. Musculoskeletal situations, mental health is a massive claim area as well that people don't even think you can be covered for. So when you look into this kind of cover, they're not all made equal. There's a huge sort of range of providers. Personally, I like the ones that offer guaranteed premiums because I like to know where you stand. And once you take them out day one, you might think, oh, it's a little bit much, it's £30 or whatever a month. But, in context, after 20, 30 years, 30 quid a month is, a cup of tea. So it's, it's all relative. I like the peace of mind now. And once it's done, it's in force forever. And for me as well, I also like the ones that have like an unlimited payout. So for example, if you were to claim on it once for, I don't know, you had a broken leg, so you couldn't work in your own occupation. So that's the key point. Some cover only covers like if you can't work at all. Good cover covers for your own occupation, i.e. you cannot do your actual job role.
Yeah.
Big distinction there. So if you've got, I don't know, a broken leg, that means you can't drive, therefore you can't fulfill your own job role, then you can claim. If 3 years later, then you have a cancer claim and you are off work for 3 years, again, you can claim and for that full time scale. So it's important to check what the cover includes and whether that would be, sufficient. Lots of them as well have like a deferred period. So my sister's going through this at the moment, actually. She's like a behavioural analyst and she has a condition at the moment with her arm. She's really struggling to drive. And she works with kids at home, kids with autism, various other things. And her policy actually doesn't kick in for 13 weeks. Now, when we set this up, she was like, 13 weeks, it's neither here nor there. I can definitely fund it. And she has got sufficient savings to fund it. But now when it's real life and she actually has to be off work for 13 weeks, she's, twiddling her fingers waiting for this policy to kick in. So you've got to think of how this really does feel in real life. And thank goodness she's got some.
And that's actually quite an interesting point as well, because setting things up is important. And I think, actually there's an element that people think that's not going to happen to me and things like that, which actually, the statistics say otherwise. But actually, I think on top of that, having a regular review of things is also important, isn't it? Because like you just said, all of our circumstances are changing all the time. And what we set in motion early on in the business isn't necessarily a year down the line. Businesses can look very different in a year.
Oh, so different. And so with her, she is going to go limited by the end of the year. She's self-employed at the moment, but her earnings are at a level now where actually she's going to incorporate into a limited company because it's the right thing to do. And just that change alone means that now she can qualify for executive income protection. Sounds much posher, but essentially means that her limited company, I'm an executive, it means her limited company can pay for it. So not only is it really tax efficient expense for the company, it saves the corporation tax, but it's also another payment that she, as a human, doesn't have to find and pay tax on to get out of her company. So that little change, limited companies are such efficient vehicles. They're brilliant for planning, but not everybody knows, how to use them to their utmost potential. So yeah, regular reviews as you change. And if you start cheap, like we've all been there, you've had to compromise, you go, it's not quite suitable, but it'll do for now, it's better than nothing. Then, you can upgrade, and that constant reviewing process is brilliant for adding value to people's circumstances.
And I think it's important just to emphasize you can do that, can't you? Because I think kind of some people think, once you've signed up to a policy, because it's something that runs and runs, that's kind of it. You've signed up to it, and that's that. Very similar to the example that you were giving. So at the moment, my income protection policy has, I think it's 12. It might be 13 weeks, certainly 12 weeks. Basically 3 months before I can claim. But my circumstances at the moment are that's fine. That works for me. But let's say that a year or two down the line, something changes. Maybe I have an investment that I need to make. Maybe I buy a property or whatever it might be. And suddenly I'm like, actually, I don't have that fallback myself anymore. I need to change that. That can be done, doesn't it? This is quite flexible stuff.
Yeah, actually, everything is quite flexible. When you look at things from, pension contributions, they change all the time. Some of my clients need to put more in one month, stop them another month. Cash flows an ever-present beast, isn't it? So you just don't know what that looks like. So yeah, absolutely. Having someone on hand that'll pick up the phone, that you can say, you know what, actually things are tight this month. We need to make a change. Or actually things are bloody brilliant. Let's review things and see if I've still got enough because things are better. It is a constant challenge just keeping on top of things. So then when you add in, a bit of legislation and a budget, some change in interest rates, my God, you can have a whole different set of circumstances and a different set of recommendations just on that alone. So yeah, having someone you trust to be like part of this whole journey and to really get what you're going through is so important. It really makes a big difference.
So what about pensions then? Because, for a lot of people coming out of an employment, they've been used to having pensions. They might have pensions in several different jobs and stuff. And they come to the point of being self-employed or in whatever capacity. There's this kind of thing, do I need a pension? I hear people say all the time, I don't need a pension because I'm buying some properties and I've got the business. And actually a lot of businesses are not geared up to be a proper exit plan either. So are pensions still really important, or are they not as important?
Oh, such a good point. And yeah, you're absolutely right. If I had a pound for a time someone said my business will be my pension, I think, well, it's not really, because you're just your business and you're not going to be there. What are you going to do? It's not a really thought out plan, and pensions actually are better than ever. Like the new reforms they've made, the way that you can hold on to them, the way that you can pass them to your family, like the most tax efficient way, the way that you can draw them down really strategically to be tax efficient, like they are the most brilliant vehicles. And yet, unfortunately, it is the self-employed and the company directors who are missing all of this, because when you look at the statistics, like nearly 90% of employed people contribute, and almost all of them also get, employer contributions as well. So their pension savings are like doubly boosted, compared to less than a third of self-employed people. Like, wow. That is frightening. We are talking about millions of people across the UK who are not going to have a decent standard of living in retirement. That is as blunt as it is, because they're not starting early. They haven't got time for that sort of cumulative growth. They're not getting the tax relief that they're entitled to. So it is frightening, actually. And some of those people also aren't qualifying for the state pension. So we are going to have a real epidemic of problem when people get to maybe 70 for us lot, because you're so young over there. Maybe 70 before you get your 10 grand a year state pension. And if you've got no other plan for that, and your business has, evolved or has changed or isn't saleable because it's you, or, all of these things, it is a real concern. You've, a real risk of people struggling. So yeah, there is a huge call to pensions, purely because, if nothing else, they're so tax efficient. As a self-employed person, £100 gets you £25 for free. Like, it is the quickest thing. And when you look at sort of the age of starting, I think a lot of people maybe in their 30s might sort of think, oh, a bit young for that, pension nonsense. But actually, when you look at the difference it makes between a 30-year-old contributing like £125 a month, so £100 from the bank plus the tax relief, a 30-year-old would have £112,000 at 68. Compared to a 40-year-old doing the same thing would only have £68,000. So those, we're talking 10 years. It feels like nothing, and yet the impact long term is huge because of the time scale. It's like, rolling a snowball down a really long hill. The longer it's had to accumulate, the bigger and the more useful it'll be to you at retirement. So there is no time like the present, and I totally appreciate it's tough out there. But by neglecting your pension, you're basically just neglecting yourself. And really, your business should be providing and affording all of this. It's the whole point of having your own company is that it's supposed to be looking out for you better. So it's not to be lauded. And directors, even more reason. If you're a company director and you've not paying into a pension, then my goodness, you need to be looking at this, because the corporation tax relief alone just is a total no-brainer of moving money from profits to your own estate. It's just,
Yeah, and that's a really good point, is if you're a limited company, then, the pension contributions can be made from your company. You're not even having to pay it out of your personal money, are you? So, that's a real benefit. So I think a lot of people don't realise that.
No, I agree with you. Yeah, certainly directors don't sort of realise often the full value of their company, how useful it can be. And lots of people now, I can't tell you how many inquiries I've had just about tidying up old pensions, understanding them, really understanding, instead of just bits of paper in a drawer, like, what is this going to buy me? How am I going to get there? Can I afford to retire at an age I actually want? I don't want to be dictated to by the state as to when I can retire. I want to have control of that. Entrepreneurial people, you can forge your own way, but you need a plan. We need to make sure it actually does happen. So consolidating old things, making new contributions, getting a grip really of what that looks like. It's great. It feels really good.
Yeah, so it's a bit like the way you're planning your business. You need to have a plan that goes alongside that's taking you through the journey from start to finish, and understanding that there's maybe going to be lots of little cul-de-sacs along the way, but actually constantly reviewing, constantly looking at where you want to be beyond this business, and starting in a small way, moving up to the bigger plans at the end. But it's almost like we in another episode we've talked about our 90-day planning, constantly reflecting on where we're at and where we're going next. So it sort of feels the same process in some ways.
It really is. It's just about making sure it's working for you as an individual instead of being this separate business. It's really not. It really has to fund you on your goals. That's the whole point.
The problem with a lot of the stuff that we've talked about there, and I'm going to focus in on pensions just to illustrate this, is it's a bit complicated and it's scary as hell, right? Particularly when you're starting a business for the first time and you think pension, bottom of the list, not going to worry about that at the moment. And it's a hard thing to figure out because there's a lot of moving parts, and none of it is there are things in the world that are simple and there are things in the world that aren't, and I would put pensions in the aren't category. So we've all been there at some point when you've got to try and figure out this stuff, and the answer to that conveniently is probably to speak to someone like yourself. But let's talk a little bit about how that process works. So let's go back to Steve. Steve is getting his business up and running, and he's realised, bloody hell, I've not thought anything about my pension. I need to get that sorted. He's gone online, looked at a few things, realised I can't do this by myself. I've got to go and speak to someone. What would you do with Steve? How would you help Steve figure out what is right for him in terms of his pension?
Yeah, great question. So somebody like Steve, you would definitely start by, trying to make the whole thing as simple and as straightforward and as understandable as possible. And essentially, a lot of the time, actually, if we didn't call it pension and we just called it a tax-efficient savings plan, it would seem so much less daunting, because the complexities of pension really happen much later down the line. Like, I agree, they are complex, but they're particularly complicated when you're trying to access them and all of that side of things. And actually, to start with, all it needs is, a little monthly commitment, 100 quid or so, just a little something just to open the door to the concept of pensions, just to start them off. It really doesn't need to be as complicated as I think sometimes they feel like it's a tiny little step into just a regular savings that you don't have to worry too much about, that someone like me will help you, pick a portfolio that does a good job, that's not too risky, it's not, not too complicated. It really doesn't have to be this bad. So with our kind of pensions, to give you an idea, I do all our first appointments are just complimentary. It's just talk. we just have a chat. We make sure we all like each other, because when you sort of set up with a financial advisor, you get them then. They keep cropping up. That's it then. You've got me for life. You will have to see me every year, whether you like me or not. And, it's the whole part of this kind of journey. So the first stage is like, do we like each other? Are we going to get on forever? Can we make a reasonable choice that everything's going to be okay? Then you'll tell me about your business and your plans. We'll talk a little bit about sort of what you've had before, whether you've actively chosen any pensions, which most people don't. They seem to end up in a scheme with work that's picked for them. So we'll maybe have a look at those and say, oh, you were really risky at this one. Did you know? How does that make you feel? Or, oh, you invested in a lot of oil there, but you told me you're an eco-activist. Is that really into what you're trying to achieve? We'll look at all of these things. And if it's not in line with you as a human, then we'll tweak it to fit and we'll make it work, and then you'll feel more in control. And as we build up more confidence, we build up more funds, then we can have more detailed conversations about risk choice and all of that kind of thing. But initially, to start with, it doesn't have to be this bad. And I want people to know as well that you can make contributions, then you can stop them. You can put in £700 a month and then you can panic and stop them. It's okay. You're allowed to have a bit of trial and error. You're allowed to be adaptable. It certainly isn't going to annoy me, because I'm just so pleased that you're taking steps, and that in the future we'll look back and go, thank God we did that. That is real job satisfaction for me, because I know that we're doing the right thing at the right time and giving you the best opportunity for long-term wellness, financial wellness. That's what we want. So it's good.
I think that's a really important message, isn't it? Because we know that business is constantly evolving and adapting, and you knowing that you can adapt things like that alongside what's going on is quite reassuring, isn't it? And everyone pays themselves in different ways in business as well. So you can kind of, if you're more of a pay yourself quarterly, you might be making more lump sum payments, whereas other people just want that nice steady set of money going out every month. Or with the likes of me, a few years ago, there was very little. There was, I started this business on no money, and so there wasn't any money. But my pension was set up and ready, and it will go the minute I had the funds to be able to pay into it. So I did the work, I set it up.
Yeah.
Got it all ready, and it just sat there until there was enough money coming in for the contributions to be made. So I think that's another really important message, to be able to that you can set this up. You don't have to do it immediately. You just get the groundwork in place.
Just get it ready. Just get it ready to roll when you're ready to roll, and that's the whole point of this. It's preparedness. It's thinking in advance. It's getting things ready so that ultimately, no business starts off making $1 million. It just doesn't work like that. That's nice, isn't it? But, these early conversations are where it all begins. It gets you on the right path, and that's all that we really can hope for, is that you're on the right path. And it's peace of mind for business owners, when things are set up, and things like expression of wishes on pensions are massive. They're like a little will, because your actual will doesn't cover your actual pension. So the amount of times I've met people and we've looked at their old pensions, and it's like their first girlfriend, and they've been married and divorced twice since then.
I've heard that happen a lot.
You don't really want to leave that to that person. You've not seen them for 22 years. There's lots of other stuff, and it's like peace of mind. It's like a job off the list. I've done a thing. I'm in good shape. I'm working on it. It's not perfect, but I'm working on it. Is much better than I've ignored it and I've put it in a drawer and now I'm 54,
One of the things that we're hoping that people will do, having listened to these episodes, is that they will be able to go away and implement this in some sort of practical way. So would you like to set our listeners a little bit of homework so that they can go away and work on a few steps that will help them to move in the direction of financial harmony?
Oh, I'd love to. I love giving people work to do. I would. And so essentially, I would love to do that. And I think the easiest way to do is like a little MLT. So I'd love it if you went and grabbed a bit of paper and a pen. And we're going to do a little financial MLT on the key 3 stages of business financial planning. So we start with resilience. So the first half of this quiz will look at how resilient your business is. And actually, when you read the statistics around, because I'm such a geek, I really do like to do that sort of stuff. When you read about how new businesses stack up to really established businesses, actually resilience the younger crowd with younger businesses tend to get this right a lot of the time. We're not just talking about financial resilience, we're talking about operational resilience and personal resilience. You as an entrepreneur, how resilient are you? So the first half of this quiz is all about resilience. Essentially, self-employed people and small businesses are at the greatest risk of shock. So when COVID came, the people that struggle the most were naturally us business people, because there's less kind of security, there's less enforced security through employers. But getting this right, resilient businesses are 6 times more likely to grow. So this has got a direct correlation between how resilient you make yourself, the foundations you got right from the beginning, and how well your business will ultimately do. Like, these are proven things. So let's talk a little bit about resilience, so you can identify some areas you can protect your business from future risks. So question 1, do you have 6 months worth of typical business spending set aside as an emergency fund? So if you looked at your bank statement every month, let's say if you had, $4,000 a month of committed outgoings, you would need 6 months worth set aside. Now, this is just for healthy cash flow.
Well, I wonder how many businesses have actually got that. I wonder how many large businesses have got that, actually. Based on, what went on during the pandemic, I suspect quite a lot of them didn't.
Well, absolutely. I think some people would fall short. But when we look at like stress testing, COVID seemed like a huge and unexpected event. And I'm not saying it wasn't, because it was. However, there will always be unexpected events. Yeah. So we have to move away from this mindset of, whoa, it was such a surprise, into, no, things do happen, things will go wrong. You have to be prepared for that. And the obvious thing is to make sure you've got cash reserves, so that whatever life throws at you, you've got a little bit of leeway. Yep. So that is question 1. Yep. Question 2, slightly different but a similar thread, is would you be able to make a financial investment into your business at short notice if required? So this is more about, can you seize an opportunity as it arises? If something comes along and you think, right, that bit of equipment, this staff member, this contract I need to bid for, this premises would make a huge difference. Like, could you act upon that? Because that is all part of business growth.
Okay.
Question 3 is, could you easily adapt your business model? So unsurprisingly, the businesses who are the most flexible and resilient and adaptable are often B2B businesses that sell to other businesses. There's reduced risk of things like recession causing big impact on how people spend. Mm-hmm. And also online businesses, as you would imagine, less overheads, more flexible, quick to adapt. So is there a plan for that? As part of that, understanding and getting real-time feedback from your customers and from your colleagues, employees, whatever, is massive, because it helps you spot changing trends as opposed to being on the battlefield once they've already happened. So we're looking forward, we're listening, are we engaging with people? Do we know when we need to change our business model? Okay. And there's a bit of trial and error in that as well, to be fair. 4 is what we touched on earlier, which is, have you got a contingency plan in place if you are ill? Like, physically, can your business run? Who's going to pick that up? Can you afford it to run? All of those things, what happens? Illness is not unusual. Be prepared.
It happens.
It happens. 5, as a business, do you understand the importance of your own well-being and your employees' well-being? This is huge when we look at resilience. Your people are absolutely key. Are they in a place to adapt? Are they in a place to take over? Are they confident about the future? Like, if you can't have this kind of well-being conversation, then you will struggle. And that comes for yourself as well. Do you give back? Have you got wellness programs? I do for free, because I think it's the right thing to do for the community, in all honesty. So I do a workplace wellbeing seminar. So I will go into workplaces where they've got more than 20 employees, and we'll do like a lunchtime learn, or we'll do some scam awareness, or we'll talk about pensions, because I love pensions. But we'll do all of this because it's all about education. The more you know, the more you understand, the better decisions you can make. It's just good sense. So wellbeing is huge, financial and otherwise. And burnout, obviously, is a real problem for small businesses. And then we look at enjoyment. So if you're going to run your own business, it needs to be an enjoyable journey to keep you motivated, to have that drive to run a business. So the next questions are specifically about enjoyment. So 6 is, are you taking advantage of your flexible working schedule in a positive way, or are you just working?
Oh yes,
Nikki.
yes. I'll just stay quiet on that question.
7, is your business providing for you in the same way that a respectable big business would? All the things we've talked about, insurances, pensions, etc. And then number 8, we touched on this briefly, but not so much. But this is more about exit. We're talking about the final plans. So 8 is, are you basically the entire business? Without you, is your business redundant? In which case, you're not going to have that kind of sales plan. There is no big bonanza at the end. So there are a lot of things you can do. Business coaches are a much better place to talk about all of these things. I'm sure you'll speak to one in the future. But particularly, I really love the E-Myth Revisited, the business book.
Oh, yeah.
If you guys have read it. I just love it. When you are like the technician in your business and then you start this business and it follows the story of this like pie shop woman who is like baking pies. She loves baking pies. And then she starts a business and oh my God, then it shows like all the other stuff she's trying to do whilst also baking pies. And she can't see the wood for the trees, but this pie shop. And it's really interesting reading. It's so
it really is one of those books that every new business should read to get your head around that concept of whether you are creating a business or whether you're creating a job for yourself. And if you've created a job for yourself, there is no value in that. If you've created a business, then potentially that does have value, provided it's set up properly. And it's that whole idea of getting your business set up in the organizational structure from day one, even if your name is on every job to start with, at least shows you what you're actually trying to achieve. Otherwise, you've just created a job and there's no financial value in selling your job to somebody.
Yeah. Basically, just go get it with so much ease. Yeah, have a business or have a job. Don't try and have both. Oh yeah, it's a great read. Have a read of that if that's you. 9 is there an age? Is there a plan? Is there an income expectation? And is this realistic? Let's get a grip on retirement. Okay. And 10, the final thing is, how saleable is it? Like, if you have a viable, sellable business, are the systems slick? Having slick systems actually, like, statistically means you can demand 86% more value for your business if you can prove it's like operational, a mic drop, I'll be off, enjoy your business, as opposed to, oh my goodness, I'm going to spend the next 10 years ingraining you to take over my place because I am in every possible bit of this business. So, and also things like hiding profits for the sake of being tax efficient. We see this a lot, like people being putting through so many expenses that their business looks unprofitable because they were being tax aware, paying little tax, but then they basically have shown that they've got no value to their business. So having a 5-year plan to exit is very sensible. To try and, get your business to be this thing that you, in your mind it is, but maybe to the commercial market might not look the same. So yes, there are my 10 questions to really audit your business.
No, that's good. That's the most thorough homework that anyone has set so far.
Sorry.
No, that's good. That's good. We will stick a version of those questions into the show notes as well. So anyone that's not had the pen and paper with them, then go and search out those questions in the show notes. I mean, it's rhetorical. It's an opportunity for people to answer those questions for themselves. But if they do answer them and think, actually, do you know what? I need some help with this. And having just listened to you, Zoe, thinks, actually, maybe you're the person to help me. How do people get in touch or find out more about you and what you do?
Well, that would be very lovely. And absolutely, I love being the start of people's journey because you've had so much value in those early stages. And also, it's very cost effective because I am a really good sounding board. I will just sit and listen and you can tell me everything and we'll figure out a way to get you where you tried to go. And that kind of thing is just, it's just guidance. We're just talking. I'm just a human like everybody else. So come and find me. You can just call my mobile. I'm always on the thing. And we'll put all the details somewhere, won't we? Emails and what have you. But you can get hold of me anywhere across Yorkshire in general. We are very much, here to help. Pop in, we'll have a cup of tea in a traditional Yorkshire way. And let's talk about it, make some plans.
Excellent. Mine's decaf.
See you later on.
Brilliant. So it's been really, really good. Some amazing points in there. Hopefully, if we can help, one person who is at the start of their journey avoid one of those pitfalls, one of those mistakes, and help them as they make those steps into business, then it's been well worthwhile. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Zoe.
Thanks, guys. It's been amazing. So nice.
And hopefully there'll be a lot more people out there now being way more proactive with their financial planning.
I probably scared everyone to death from this point.
Well, that's a good place to start. Thanks ever so much, Zoe.
Well, thank you for your attendance today. I hope you've learned something new. Every day is a business school day after all. If you'd like to contact us or perhaps put yourself forward as a future guest, find either Nikki or myself on LinkedIn, or you can drop us a line using the links in the show notes. Right, school is out. Please wait for the bell before you leave.